Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about something a little different. Obviously normally I concentrate on the markets and finance and bits and bobs, but today I'm going to be talking about a Reddit post that I came across yesterday, and it was something along the lines of, has Eve become too safe? And again, it's going to be very opinion based, it's all my opinions, so do bear with me, but I will try and flesh out all the points that I make here, and feel free to comment. So, as some of you might know, I've been here now coming on 17 years in the EVE world, and things have changed quite dramatically since I started, and you'd expect that from a 17-year-old game. And again, you know, if it hadn't have changed, then obviously EVE would probably have faded into the past somewhere. But change isn't always necessarily good, and the game has steadily got, well, easier, convenient, and less hardcore would probably be the best way of putting it. Now, some of these changes are good, and some of them are bad. And the reason that it's bad is, well, again, I'll go into this, is because it takes away content. And content is what drives us all. We're all here for something specific, whether it's to interact with other people, whether it's to try and avoid interacting with other people. You know, obviously if you're holding stuff and it's expensive, you don't want to be interacting with anybody, you just want to be left alone and you want to get to destination A to B. However, if you're PvP and you want to be interacting with other people because you want to be destroying their ships, etc. And again, same with the market. So the principles of one action having an effect on another action or person is kind of what balances EVE, all in all. And oddly enough, I had planned on doing a video very similar to this about the jump freighter. Now, in my personal opinion, I feel that the jump freighter was one of the worst things to be added to the game at the time. I'm pretty sure I can come up with worse things that have been added since then, and I will go through a few of them in this video. But the jump freighter. The jump freighter, basically, obviously, as the vast majority of you will know, can basically it doesn't use gates. It uses a cyno, and pretty much unless you mess up moving the jump freighter, it's very, very hard to destroy. And that means basically you can move items from point A to point B in relative safety. So back when I was a young whippersnapper back in 2005, we as a corporation lived out of TPAR. Now, TPAR is in period bases down in the arse end of nowhere, and there were a handful of NPC stations, conquerable NPC stations. So basically, we took over TPAR, and I can't 100% remember whether it was MVUO or Z-M. It was 10-11 jumps down to here, and the reason this is important, or has any relevance, is because TPAR was basically the station that we would base out of to do the stuff around here. It was a very quiet area, but TPAR had a manufacturing station, so basically you could build stuff here. However, if you were to NPC and RAT, you would have to take the stuff down to either of these two systems, whichever one it was, to do the refining, and then you would have to move the stuff back. So basically, in a hauler, T1 hauler, because I don't think T2 haulers existed, you would have to basically jump in your Badger or whatever, and you would have to move it your 11 jumps down, and then you would have to move it the 11 jumps back in order to be able to build stuff. Now, obviously, that constituted to, 20 to 22 jumps, pretty much blind, and basically if you ran into somebody in your hauler, you were in a lot of trouble. There wasn't very often you were going to escape, and that was obviously risk, reward, and content, because obviously I'd mine the stuff or farm the NPCs for the loot, and then in order to build stuff, because obviously the markets weren't particularly well seeded by this time, you would have to obviously make the perilous journey, refine the stuff, and then you would have to bring it back, and that would give other people a chance to interact with you, whether you wanted it or not. And this creates content for everybody. Obviously, you know, anybody that's played the game for any length of time, when you've jumped into either a gate camp or you've jumped a ship in and there's another ship on the other side waiting for you, that sinking moment of, oh god, I've made a mistake, I've messed up. And, you know, sometimes you'd get away and sometimes you wouldn't, and it would be one of them, you know, it's content. You don't necessarily want that content, because obviously the type of hauling you're doing, you don't want to be seeing anybody, but somebody else is then interacting with you, and that creates conflict, creates a driving force, and it creates gameplay. So in today's world, obviously you can have a manufacturing plant, you can have refining all in the same system. But even if we didn't have that, if just the jump freighter, basically you would mine here, you would jump it in your jump freighter to here, you would refine it in basically safety, and then you would jump back completely safe back to T-Par, and then you would manufacture the items that you wanted. Again, creating no chance in between any of that for you pretty much to be caught and destroyed, or to have any interaction with anybody else. And again, this is the huge problem that comes with the filaments and all the other little things. The wormholes weren't a thing, but wormholes, at least you have to go into unknown space and there is the potential to interact with somebody else, where filaments just fling you somewhere else. Now, 4DK? Nope. Oh, where was it? Okay, let's go for Hop. Yep. So, many moons ago, even before this, we used to live in Hopeb. And that was because we were basically, the corp that I joined at the time was a break-off from the Fountain Alliance. Now, this is going back many moons. And they lived in, obviously, Fountain. The corp that I was with had some kind of falling out. I can't quite remember, and I don't really care. So I joined them, and basically we would base out of Hopeb, because they owned a good portion of Fountain, and we would make the perilous journey. We would roam down here, round here, to get to them pretty much here. And basically this created a lot of content. It was great fun. It was some of my fondest memories in EVE, and this is back in 2004. With a gang called Rubra Militar? I don't know. But either way, it was a great deal of fun. And again, this was before Titans. This was before the vast majority of everything. And in order to build the Titans that people had, they had to basically move freighters through 0-0 in a convoy kind of system with backup and people looking after them. And again, it creates tension, mistakes can be made, and it creates content. Generally, because again, if someone's moving stuff like that, then you have the potential chance to stop them moving it or to interact with them, and again, creating content for everybody. And we seem to have lost that. And again, this post was going into it yesterday, and the more I thought about it, the more we've got so many ways of avoiding people. We've got jump bridges. Now, jump bridges used to be able to be anchored pretty much next door to the a player-owned station, a POS, and basically the POS would then shoot anybody that came near it. Now they've moved the gates away from the stations, the jump bridges, which is definitely a good thing, 'cause again, but your jump bridges also again give you a way of removing the potential to interact with people. So from Hopeb, you had to basically, it was a regional gate that you had. There were only two ways in, pretty much, to Fountain, and that was either through Delve or through Hopeb, or get Outer Ring. But to go through Outer Ring was a bit of a pain. Now, the problem with Hopeb and Iridia, which used to be called the Toilet of Eve, because it literally was horrific living out of here, and that was because the vast majority of Iridia is low-sec, and you can see all the red here. So in order to get battleships up to Hopeb, you had to move it through a lot of low-sec, and there were a lot of pirates here. I remember Tank CEO, if anybody's ever remembered Tank, we came across him, and the people I was with were very excited, and we destroyed him at the time, and I didn't realise who or what he was but he was quite a well-known pirate. But again, that gave us ample opportunities to interact with other people. And again, moving haulers and stuff up to Hopeb ready for incursions into Fountain, it was hard work. It was scary. You'd be moving, your stuff around, and you never knew if there was going to be a pirate camp on the next gate or whether you were going to make it. And that was fun. Yeah, it was hard. It was painful having to go the 20 odd jumps from Jitter or Amar, I can't quite remember where, but it was what it was. There was no way of basically skipping the hard parts. You didn't have jump freighters, you didn't have filaments, you didn't have wormholes, you didn't have Thera. Again, you had to do it the hard way. You moved it, and that again creates interactions between different people, which again we are now missing. So one of the other points that was brought up was the Abyss and Incursions. Now, I don't really have a great deal of experience of running Incursions. I know they're relatively hard, but they're kind of safe. One of the other things that was brought up was obviously the Abyss, and I love running the Abyss. It's fun, it's interactive, pays very well, and it's very convenient. But all them things there take away any kind of interaction with anybody else. And I can do this anywhere. I can do it in any system, in any place in EVE, whether it be a wormhole, whether it be post-vin, whether it be high sec, low sec, null sec. There's no need for me to basically have or potentially come into contact with anybody else. I can do it all on my own, and other than coming out of the instance, the Abyss instance, there's no way for anybody else to interact or stop me. And because it pays so well, it seems daft to do anything else. You can make a good amount of IS doing it. Whereas in 0-0, if you're doing the anomalies, people have a chance to interact with you and disrupt you. If you're running an anomaly, then someone comes in, you either have to leave or you have to fight. It's one of the two. So they can interrupt you, and while they're interrupting you, mistakes can be made, and that gives you a chance to interact. Now, I much preferred it when obviously you had to move around a lot more in 0-0, if you were belt ratting, or having static anomalies in certain systems, again, stops people having to use the gates and having to move. Now, obviously they've got the ESS system, but again, that's doesn't really force people to move regularly. Or maybe it does, but not in the way that excuse me, belt ratting used to, where you would have to jump into the next system in order to farm the belt rats. So EVE's so far down the road that some of these things are obviously not going to change, I shouldn't imagine, and that's Titan jump bridges, jump freighters, filaments, and everything that basically allows you to skip areas and basically skip interactions with other people. Now, CCP does have an area currently that they could develop to be more, I don't like to use the word old school, but basically a purer type of EVE, and that is post-vin, and that basically they could expand it, and again, the mechanics are already there to make it more old school as such. You've got the NPC stations, you can't put up your own stations anymore, you can't have capital ships, you can't put up jump bridges, and you can't use sinos. And that could, again, I haven't been to post-vin a great deal, for whatever reason, maybe I need to check it out a bit more, but this gives you the opportunity there to bring back some of these things that have allowed the game to, or allow people to skip content basically within the game. And I don't see this as necessarily a bad thing. I just think the area just needs to be expanded. But obviously with the player count dropping slightly, this could be an issue trying to expand areas. Because again, you're just going to make dead space. But again, if it's worth it, people will come. If you make it decent enough and fun, where, so say, these interactions can take place, then people will come to live there and to try it out. But you do need more potential NPC stations. I think the 3 in 27 systems is not good, but it does kind of encourage people to group together or to be together. And so, yeah, Eve has changed considerably, and it has become a lot safer travelling around a vast majority of areas now. And again, this is not a good thing. It sucks to be blown up by somebody. Yes, nobody wants to be, ganked, etc. But it's all part and parcel. It was part and parcel of the game, and that's what gave it its edge, its fun, its uniqueness. That if you weren't scouting or you made a mistake, then you very often paid the price for it, and that price could be quite heavy, depending what it was that you were moving or flying at the time. And again, a lot of that feels like it's gone. I can move, I don't have to travel from Horde space to Delve in 54 jumps, I think it was last time I looked. I can take a wormhole, I can take a filament, I can take Thera. It's much, much easier and convenient to move around. And again, that isn't necessarily, as I've said, a good thing. So it'd be very interesting to hear your thoughts. And again, I hope that wasn't too rambly. It has gone on a little longer than anticipated. But again, I think it's an interesting point. And, as an old school player or an old time player, it's I still remember what I consider the good days, and these may be rose-tinted glasses, I couldn't tell you, but I do remember having huge amounts of fun in the past, and I feel a lot of that has now gone, and new players, get this watered-down version of what Eve was, and, I feel... Look, but a lot of old school players are still here, and why is that? Is that because we remember the good times, or is it because we've just been playing that long we can't fathom playing anything else? And how come the newer players aren't sticking around as much? And is that, it's because Eve is a shadow of its former self, and it's kind of sad to think of it like that. And that's not to say that there hasn't been good changes and good things, and but it does take away some of that brutalness of what Eve was and what it stood for. So yeah, your comments, your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. And with that, thanks for your time, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again later.